going to be heading that direction.
There was not a microphone in my chair, so I don't have to say anything. You know, Glenn has a driver and a guard. That's right. That's right.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is the town hall meeting presented each month by the Williamson Inc., our county chamber of commerce. We're sure glad to have those of you here with us at Columbia State, and those of you that are watching on WCTV Channel 3, and the rest of you that are listening by way of WAKM AM 950. We've got a star-studded panel this morning that we are looking forward to hearing from. The Speaker of the House is expected any moment now. Just came in. So we're looking forward to finding out about a lot of the changes going on in Nashville these days and how they are going to affect Williamson County and in particular the Williamson County businesses. So we have with us this morning our State Senator Jack Johnson, now the Majority Leader of the Tennessee Senate. We've got Mr. Speaker of the House, Glenn Cassidy, with us, representing the 63rd District. Go ahead and adjust your seat to your liking, Glenn. And
You said it.
I'm having difficulties here.
it's somebody helping there.
Yeah, I need a lot of help.
Sit in. Yeah, sit up.
We also have with us now no longer a freshman legislator, Representative Sam Whitson, representing the 65th District here in Williamson County. And our new freshman this year, Mr. Brandon Ogles, representing the 61st District. So glad to have all of you with us this morning. Lots of changes going on in Nashville, a lot of them being crafted by the folks right here. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where to start as I was writing out somewhat of an agenda this morning. But since we've got a new governor to be inaugurated tomorrow from Williamson County, and the Majority Leader, as I understand it, is the governor's right-hand man in the Senate. Is that right, Jack?
Well, I, as Majority Leader, I will sponsor all of the governor's legislation. That's probably the primary responsibility I have. So I will sponsor the state budget and any legislative initiatives that the governor has, whether the bills come from various state agencies or departments or they're the governor's legislative initiatives. And so we're already working on his legislative package now. And now I may delegate some of those bills out to other members, but I will be the top line sponsor on all of those bills, and very much looking forward to working with our new governor.
So that means hopefully you're going to have a lot of input in those bills.
Well, one might think that. We will see. In some of our initial conversations, I'm very supportive. I think the governor-elect's going to just dive in head first with some of the things he talked about on the campaign trail, things we'll probably touch on today. Some of the high points are criminal justice reform, which is something that has broad bipartisan support. Rural economic development. You know, our state is in the best shape it's ever been in. We have the lowest unemployment rate we've ever had. Having said that, though, there are pockets of areas in the state, particularly in some of the rural areas, that are not doing as well economically. There are some counties that still have double-digit unemployment rates, and so Governor-elect Lee, as of, I guess, about noon tomorrow, I can drop the elect part of that, but Governor-elect Lee is very interested in working on some of those distressed counties and helping them from an economic development standpoint. And then obviously education and expanding vocational technical and career technical education. So very supportive of all those things, and my office will be working very closely with his on getting that legislation ready to go and get it passed.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the new title, and we look forward to seeing how that works out. Speaker of the House, Glenn Cassidy.
Good morning. I appreciate the high chair that you gave me, Dave.
Well, here now.
Everybody says I'm a legend in my own mind, and made me feel a bit.
You know, we always had someone that seemed to exceed in the order of ranking in the House and Senate, but now you're the boss. And so, how does that feel?
You know, it's funny. That is a high-profile position, but I think you grab a hold of this tiger and you don't let go, because it will eat you if you don't. But we've got some sharp folks in the House, and I'm excited to put those guys to work. And two of them are right here. And Sam is going to be chairing a new subcommittee in transportation, and its primary goal is to be working with road builders and looking at the future of Tennessee, not just Williamson County, but the state of Tennessee, on road construction and where do we go from there. So, you know, the old saying, if you need something done, you get a retired colonel to do that. And then we've got Brandon. We put Brandon on. Brandon will be on budget sub. First time a freshman has been on budget sub in decades, probably. And Brandon's got some shoes to fill. We're going to miss Charles. But Brandon's going to step up, and a sharp guy, he's going to step up and lead. So I'm excited about what we got going on in the House, and really excited about Jack and his leadership, and we work hand in glove. We meet quite a bit and talk about legislation, direction of the General Assembly, and state's in good hands with Jack and these two guys.
Speaking of big shoes to fill, you're following, of course, Beth Harwell, who I think, from my perspective, appeared to be a consensus leader, very much a even-handed leader. Prior to that, though, you had Jimmy Nafee and Ned Ray McWhorter in the spot that you're in right now. And they kind of ruled with an iron fist, as I understand. So how would you characterize your leadership style in light of that? You
know, we all have goals in life, and my goal is to be, as cliche as it sounds, I like the word a servant leader. You lead by example, and you build up other people, and you put good people in charge and let them go. That was a Ronald Reagan's theory. We did something unique in the House that hasn't been done in 50 years, which two of our committees, we put Democrats in charge of. So it's an attempt to reach out to the other side. That day? What's that?
So were you feeling okay that day?
We are developing a team concept in the House. And I want the other side, they're smart guys and smart girls, and we want to put them to work. And so the team concept is keeping state government small, keeping taxes low, let Tennesseans excel with that freedom. And we have been for the past 8 years. And so we're reaching out to the other side, we're giving them leadership opportunities, we're asking them to join the team, and let's just see where it takes us.
So you've expanded the number of subcommittees by, what, 50%?
Yeah, we went from 14 to 28. We did.
Doubled it then.
Yes. The idea behind that is put subject matter experts on those subcommittees so they can do deep dives. In the past, what Beth did 8 years ago was good. It needed to be done. But in any organization, you've got to shake it up. And so 8 years have come and gone, and it's time for a shake-up. And so we're going to so Sam, for example, is just an excellent logistics guy. He's a technical, detailed guy. He's going to dig down deep. And when bills come to his committee, and when ideas come to him, he's going to chair it and make it even better. And that's the goal.
Well, one thing I noticed you did, and they're calling them oversight committees. Is that your term? which, let me say this kindly, when John Schroeder took over as mayor of Franklin, he did away with oversight committees over the various city departments.
Yeah.
And when you have oversight committees, then the bureaucrats have somebody that really is focused on what they're doing and paying attention to what's going on in the department, and in my opinion, probably have a little better handle on what's going on.
It is.
Is that kind of your thoughts?
That's exactly. There's two
Don't
things.
mean to put words in.
No, Dave. You do it well. Keep your. No, I'm teasing. No, that's you said it well. Is that number one, transparency? We want the legislative body to be looking into the activity of those committees. They do a good job. They're good people. But when it comes to prisons, children and family, and TennCare, those are things that intimately involves all of our lives. And we need elected folks that are accountable to the public, hearing, sitting in and listening to what they've done and why they've done it, and then for us to give input. So that is the goal. Well said.
Good. The another thing that's been mentioned is you would like to have a little more input into the budget process, more collaboration, I think, with the Senate. How do you see that? I noticed you named Susan Lynn from Mount Juliet as your chairman of the Finance Ways and Means Committee, which I thought was a little surprising.
Very surprising.
Tell us about her and how all that fits together.
Susan is probably one of the hardest working people up there. She enjoys the minute things of a budget, similar to Charles Sargent. Charles was that way too. And Susan is now retired. She will be full-time, like most legislative things, full-time work, part-time pay. But she's committed to being up there probably every day, working with the department heads and help crafting that budget. She's going to be good. It was a surprise. It surprised a lot of people. But I was proud to have the first female chairman of finance on the House side chairing that, and she's going to do a good job.
Some rule changes we're going to talk about just a couple more organizational issues, and then we'll come back and talk about issues, the real issues here in just a minute. But a lot of rule changes with the House as well, closed caucuses for the caucuses. Anything in particular there that you can help us understand about all that?
You know, when I was leader, I did look at it a little bit differently, but I trust my caucus leadership. I trust them. And so if that's a direction, from time to time on those rare, and they told the public it would be very rare, but there are times you've got to have that family discussion where it doesn't pertain to legislative matters, it pertains to personal issues. And so I trust my caucus leadership. And my majority leader, William Lamberth, caucus chairman Cameron Sexton, that's what they wanted to do. I trust them.
Right. And Jack, the Senate, Lieutenant Governor is still the Lieutenant Governor, and so there didn't seem to be as many committee changes and things like that in the Senate as there have been in the House. But how does the House's reorganization affect what y'all do?
Well, it's interesting, and Glenn has done such a great job in structuring that, and as he said, putting the right people in the right positions. That's probably, when you talk about the Speaker of the House or the Speaker of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor, it's an immensely powerful position because literally all committee assignments, committee chairmanships, all of that is decided by the Speaker. And obviously Glenn is collaborative, and he consulted with his leadership and members in making those decisions. And same thing happens on the Senate side. Our Speaker, Randy McNally, Lieutenant Governor McNally, made those changes. When you look at the House and the Senate, every single leadership position, other than two, has a new person in it. And the two that remain consistent are the Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the Senate, Randy McNally, and then our Speaker Pro Tem, who's Farrell Hill from Sumner County. Every other leadership position in the Senate and every leadership position in the House changed hands. Now, good people veteran legislators moving into new positions, so it's not as if they're just brand new people, but because we have a new majority leader in the Senate, we have a new caucus chairman, that did open up some committee assignments. Paul Bailey, who is chairman of the Transportation Committee on the Senate side, he's now chairman of the Commerce Committee, which I chaired for the last 9 years. Becky Massey moved into the chairmanship of the Transportation Committee. And then Brian Kelsey who's been chairman of the Judiciary Committee for a number of years, moved to the Finance Committee. And if you're on the Finance Committee, you can't be a chairman of a committee. That's getting into the weeds here. But he will be the only member of the Shelby County delegation on the Finance Committee. So that was important to Shelby County. And so we have a new Judiciary Chairman, Senator Mike Mell. Will be chairing the Judiciary Committee. So again, a lot of changes, a lot of movement, but it's good. I think change is good, and having new eyes, fresh eyes coming in, it's going to bring some challenges because I have to learn my new role. We're all in new positions here. We have to learn. We've got a new governor, but I think that's healthy. I think it's good for the process.
Good deal. Sam Whitson, you are now a veteran of
just 2 years.
2 years, and you've seen a lot of things, probably learned a lot over the last couple of years. What advice would you have for the man to your left that is now a freshman and got some really big shoes to fill? And, how would you help him out here?
First of all, Brandon worked hard on my campaign, and I supported his campaign. So we have developed a relationship starting 3 years ago. He approached me just out of the blue when I was running, and we developed a sense of trust. And so, again, listen, seek out those folks that you respect and admire, and try to emulate them, how they conduct themselves, and how they approach the issues that we face. And I just also want to take an opportunity to also congratulate these two great guys and friends up here. Their scope of responsibility is going to go way beyond Williamson County, and they're going to be pulled. Like there was something we were going to the other day. He was in Memphis, and so and Jack, his responsibilities with the governor and across the state. It's a blessing for Williamson County. And but also their focus, and I'm not speaking for them, but again, they have to look at the entire state when they address issues and such. And I appreciate Glenn trusting me with the transportation subcommittee. I did not ask him; he came to me, and now I find myself reading TDOT manuals at night instead of military history. Thank you, Glenn. But also there's another part to it. It's Dan Howell, who's the chairman of transportation. Dan and I developed a very close relationship when we was working on the Improve Act, and also Susan Lynn has a background, if I'm not mistaken, I think she has a master's in economics, and also she has a business background. And it was kind of funny, Susan told me the other day when she got appointed chairman of budget and finance, she has a lot of new friends, but she said, but you've been a good friend to me all along, because we worked together also on the Improve Act. So it's a great opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. And also you hear about the additional subcommittees. I've talked to some long-term folks who have been up there a long time, Democrats and Republicans. They said it worked well years ago, and they're looking forward to seeing this system again as we implement it.
Well, I was going to ask Glenn about the chairmanship of the Transportation Committee coming from Georgetown, Tennessee. When's the last time they had traffic in Georgetown?
It's a suburb of Cleveland.
Just a gotcha question. But we're certainly glad to have one of our own on the Transportation Subcommittee, and we know you'll represent us well there, Sam, and look forward to it.
And I do look forward to meeting, and talked to Paula Harris out here earlier about meeting the new TDOT commissioner and getting to be, help that team. And, you know, TDOT has been so responsive to us. Just as an example, last Thursday I get a call from the team moving the locomotive. They said what they were going to set that thing on was stuck at the Tennessee-Georgia line. Do we know anybody in TDOT that can help? John Shore, their legislative assistant, one call, they got the permit down there and got the oversized load moved.
Very good. Brandon Ogles, just a new world to you a little bit. You've hung around these things a lot in recent years, but so far, what's your impression?
Well, there's definitely a big difference in watching and then being there, is what I've found so far. You know, and a testament to the building we're in right now. Charles Sargent did an amazing amount of work on the Hill, was there almost every day, and I see his traces everywhere up there. So that's been pretty special to try to, you know, I've been up there a lot, as much as I can be almost every day, trying to soak up the breadcrumbs that Charles has left.
Wow.
You know, everything from a file to appropriation. And Lauren Campbell, his LA, I've been fortunate enough to have her in the office for the last 2 months, and you know, she's a wealth of knowledge, and in a lot of ways she's cracking the whip on me, kind of directing me how I know Charles would, and trying to get me up to speed on all things financial in the budget. But state budget is a different animal than anything I've ever seen. I understand small business, mid and large size businesses as far as how the finances work to some degree. State finance is different, and there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of consequences sometimes to decisions that until you have that institutional knowledge, sometimes things that I wouldn't even consider. You know, it's kind of to some degree playing chess instead of checkers,
right.
Because when you make appropriations or make decisions financially, there can be consequences 2, 3, a decade down the road that you have to consider. So it's a unique learning curve. It's going to take a long time. I'm trying to come up to speed as quick as possible. But a testament to Glenn, he put a lot of freshmen in vice chair positions, which is very unique. And he's doing a great job trying to cultivate that institutional knowledge so we don't have these huge eddies and dips and turns in the House. Because, you know, there have been periods of large turnover, this being, I believe, the biggest since the Civil War. So good chance if you're walking down the hall and you holler out freshman, you'll have 1 out of 3 people turn around that have one of these pins on. It's a special time in the fact that there's a large group learning together.
Right.
So to a large degree, that takes a little pressure off because we're all trying to find our way together. But I'm leaning on these great gentlemen to kind of help direct me whenever possible.
You've got some great teachers here, and we know you'll
Yes.
do well too. We're looking forward to seeing how that develops. And the time is flying by quicker than I had planned on it here. But let's circle back around just to the issues that are being discussed as far as I know. And Jack, since you're carrying the governor's legislation, one of his top priorities seems to be criminal justice reform. There's some talk about a Texas and Georgia system that maybe is a model that we need to look at. What do you see developing there? I think, didn't we just have criminal justice reform last year?
We did. We've been talking about it for several years, actually, up there, and kind of maybe nibbling around the edges a little bit. And full disclosure, we don't have specific language yet from the governor, so I don't want anything I say to be construed as speaking on behalf of the governor. So we're still at a pretty high level kind of focus. But what I do understand is that ultimately, you know, our system, the way it is right now, was basically created under a court order back in the 80s, I believe it was, when there was a lawsuit about prisons and that kind of thing. And so back then, many years ago, kind of gunned ahead from the courts to the General Assembly, had to reform and do some things with the prison system. Ultimately, again, from a very high level, we just feel like that we're putting some people in prison, maybe for longer periods, and we're not talking about violent crimes here, but perhaps on simple drug offenses and things of that nature. There's too much focus on incarceration and less on rehabilitation. Okay. And so in terms of recidivism and helping people who pay their debt to society and then are able to come back out and be productive members of society, which is ultimately what we want. Interestingly, Governor-elect Lee has been very involved with, and I believe is on the board of a nonprofit organization called Men of Valor, which focuses on re-entry programs. And they have been very, very successful, and they go into prisons and they identify prisoners who are nearing the end of their sentence, and they work with them, they mentor them, they help facilitate finding them a job when they come out of prison, a place to live, so they're not just back out on the streets and maybe turn back to a life of crime in some way. So again, very high level kind of stuff, but it's something we've been having ongoing conversations about. And ultimately the focus is certainly if you commit a crime, you're responsible to pay your debt to society. But once that debt is paid, we don't want you to end up back in prison. We want you to end up as a productive member of society. And so how can we maybe focus some resources on reentry programs, helping facilitate getting people back out and into society. And some of the things we've done just recently that Sam and Glenn have been a part of is, for example, changing some of the laws relative to getting a license. You know, we had laws on the books that said if you had committed certain crimes and you come out of prison, or even if you didn't serve a prison term, maybe you had probation, but you can no longer get a license to be a barber or a cosmetologist. So we have impediments in place that prevent people sometimes from being able to go out and get a job. Right. So again, I don't want anybody to think, oh, we're going to start getting soft on crime. We're not. That's not the focus of it at all. It's more about making sure you don't commit subsequent crimes.
Brandon, one of your committee appointments is the Criminal Justice Subcommittee. So you'll have a lot of input into anything that comes in that direction through the House. Any observations so far that of what you're hearing, what your experience might give us?
Well, Jack stated it well. Where he's at is where a lot of the House is as well. We're waiting to see kind of the direction the governor's wanting to take, and then, you know, the criminal justice reform is a very broad term. That could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I've been receiving emails from every possible source that thinks that means something. It's going to take a little time for us to home in and get our messaging on what that looks like. Now the bills are starting to stack up, and those are being those messages are being articulated. So in the next few weeks, as we start to file more bills, we'll start to see a little bit more vision of what that's going to look like. But I'll just mirror what Jack said. I don't think there's any appetite statewide to release prisoners, definitely that have committed any violent crimes. You know, those people will not be furloughed early. You know, we're going to try to put mechanisms in place to help people and reintroduce them into society. But this is in no form, I think, a push to water down our laws.
Not even the Centolia Browns of the world.
Well, that was a decision by the governor. I'm not going to weigh into that. That's definitely way out of my wheelhouse.
We won't make you weigh in on that. Mr. Speaker, any more color you want to add to the criminal justice subject as far as what you're expecting to see out of the House?
No, but I tell you, if you watch how Nashville works versus how D.C. works, the state government, we like to take incremental steps. We spend your taxpayers judiciously. We'll take an advancement, for example, getting your license again once you've served your time so you can serve in some of these occupations. And then we'll see what's the results. And then if it has results, we'll spend a little more money and move forward. It's the opposite of what D.C. does, which is spend billions and walk away, no results, and we go deeper in debt. And so I think you as citizens, we should be proud of how state government works and the results we get, and then we take another step.
A couple of things go hand in hand with, I think, criminal justice, and that's career and technical education, just getting folks the right education to begin with so that they don't have the motivation to commit crime. And then mental health, drug addiction, opioid crisis. I guess, is that all on the table again this year? Anything specifically that, Jack, you've heard of or aware of that we should expect to see?
Again, no specifics, and our timing here is good because we're going to inaugurate the new governor here in just a little over 24 hours, and inside, by the way, I'm happy about that. It's the weather's going to be pretty ugly, I think, tomorrow, but we will be getting those specifics, and that's why we're kind of we're in the middle of our reorganization session right now and working on that. However, Relative to the opioid crisis, absolutely, there's more work to be done. That Tennessee, we can brag about Tennessee in many respects, but the opioid crisis is not an area where we can agree. Unfortunately, we're have some of the highest per capita deaths rate related to opioid abuse. So I think Governor Haslam and we took a good first step this past year with some legislation and allocating some resources. You know, it's a three-legged stool, remember that, and I think that's the way we'll proceed. It is prevention, treatment, and enforcement. I mean, that's basically it. We need to prevent people from becoming addicted. For those that are addicted, we need to get them treatment, appropriate treatment, and certainly we need to enforce the laws on the books that help prevent people from getting addicted. And I think we'll continue to build on all three of those legs of that stool.
Dave, if I could jump in on mental health, meeting with the Commissioner Williams, Commissioner on mental health, and then we've set up a meeting with Lieutenant Governor, and then we will be meeting with the leaders. We need to spend money. It's one of those incremental steps. There are individuals in this state that are a danger to themselves, to their families, to us. We need to spend more money on beds and long-term treatment. And Governor Lee, we've met with him, and he is all on board, so you're going to see an initiative on that as well. So we'll start with those that are a harm to themselves and others first. But you'll see Tennessee take some of our prosperity. I mean, we have, once again, an over collection of what we projected on state revenues. And it's because of our friendly business climate. So let's take some of our success and help those that can't help themselves.
Very good. Career and technical education, Glenn, anything you're seeing there that we should expect for Columbia State?
I tell you when, yes, I'm going to meet with those folks. Columbia State's fourth on the list. Is Dr. Smith in the room? Yeah, I think we're getting together as well. We'll have a pre-meeting. Dr. Smith and I are going to have a pre-meeting because somehow Columbia State's fallen back to fourth on the list again. And we were fourth last year, and we funded the top three. Is that correct? And somehow that math doesn't add up. So, so we're going to meet with some folks, and I look forward to our meeting first. And we're just going to, and then Jack and I and the delegation will meet with those and discuss that. Yeah.
Probably the subject that's nearest and dearest to my heart, and that's transportation, traffic, things like that. I heard some more comments about traffic this morning before we started, and so it continues to, business continues to get better, but traffic continues to get worse. Sam, you're now chairing the subcommittee in charge of fixing that, right?
Part of the team that's going to work on it, yes.
Give me your home number.
Yes. But I look forward
to do that.
I look forward to the challenge. Well, one, it's going to be a collaborative effort. When you think about TDOT's role in it, when you think about impact Nashville has on our community, a regional aspect, I tell you, Mayor Rick Graham down out of Spring Hill, he has really led the effort on creating this corridor study that we're working on from Columbia up through US 31 to Franklin. And those kind of initiatives, I think, will help. Also, we just got to look beyond just building roads. I mean, infrastructure, we think about rural broadband, how that can cut down on the traffic of folks commuting to work. For instance, my two sons, they work for a major corporation. They work for home. And so that's 2 less cars on the road. So there'll be a lot of different initiatives. I look forward to working with the governor and his team and the new TDOT commissioner as we go forward on this. And it does get a lot of attention, and but it's a challenge that I think we'll address.
Since the referendum last year on the transit plan for Nashville, it's been pretty quiet in Nashville. Regard to transit and transportation. Mr. Speaker, are you aware of any, or Sam, either one, what's going to happen next there?
They got to get through their mayor. Yeah. They have to get through their next mayoral election in Nashville, and that we'll see how that comes up on that. But again, it's again, our mayor Ken Moore here, he has addressed this as a regional approach too, and I just, it's going to be interesting to see the political future of this, especially coming out of Nashville.
Any changes to the funding for, I mean, the Improve Act, of course, is adding more and more funds to the transportation budget each year.
Well, let's remember too, the Improve Act funds are set. They're not inflation adjusted. So what communities have to do, they have to contribute to part of that to get it jumped off the first phase, like for instance the NEPA study and the and addressing in other words, justifying the need for any kind of improvement on that. So again, we want to move those projects, particularly in Williamson County and Middle Tennessee, try to get those on the 3, 2, and 1 year plan. And of course, we all participated in the recent groundbreaking for Mac Hatcher. We got that moved to the 1 year plan. It took almost 1 year to get it the groundbreaking going, but that thing's kicking off. There's improvements out on 96 over on the east side there, and of course 31 between Brentwood and Franklin. So it's keeping the focus on those projects and make sure they don't, and the communities that they impact are involved working with TDOT and the state to get them jump started.
Now, and I'm not sure I understand the what this actually means, but from what I understand, Jack, the segment of Mac Hatcher nearest and dearest to you and me, which is the southeast quadrant, and Peterson also, that's one of her pets.
I have a lot of constituents that live in West Haven. I wouldn't say that's the nearest and dearest to me, even though I live there with you.
Fair enough. But that project, it's not. Is it on the 3 year plan or not? I had trouble understanding that.
And there, if I could, there's maybe some other ways too to address that traffic issue. The new interchange down in Spring Hill to take that traffic off 31 coming up that way. The improvements of moving, from the quadrant from 96 west over to Hillsborough Road. So hopefully that will reduce that traffic amount, that last quadrant there, and if we can improve 31, we get the new interchange down in Spring Hill. The federal government just allocated $25 million grant to help get that thing jump started, and we have an 8 year window to get that thing done. I tell you what, by the time a project is started, it takes a while to get through all the 3 phases of approval and start moving dirt. Well,
Spring Hill, their growth has complicated our life here in Franklin a lot, and I had to go to Chapel Hill yesterday morning to take a calf to the vet, and when I passed 840, the traffic was backed up about 2 miles down Lewisburg Pike, the other side of 840. So,
and how many of those workers for Amazon are going to move to Spring Hill and Columbia?
A lot of them. So, gonna be interesting. Will you stay on top of that? And
I'll keep you posted, Dave. And I know you will. Every month that we're here, you will ask that.
Well, now that we've got Mac Hatcher started, we'll start asking you about our other favorite project, Sam. So, school safety is Brandon Ogle's one of your campaign issues, and you proposed to put SROs in every school in the state of Tennessee. I think, is that the way I heard it?
That's the way the bill's written right now, and it's more of a appropriation of funding that will allow the local sheriff's departments to apply for a grant. But the fiscal note is huge, and being newly appointed to finance, I found that that's the first question always to everybody when you're on finance is what is the fiscal note. It's a very heavy lift. We've got some good support. Glenn has signed on to co-sponsor. Sam's supportive, and Jack has as well. And I'm encouraged in the fact that parents and teachers and people across the state recognize that this is an issue that we need to look at. And the state government has a fiduciary duty to engage in this. We can't simply say local control on an issue that involves children and safety. So I'm encouraged. It's got good traction. I've talked to the governor's transition team several times. In fact, we talked night before last at 5:45. So there's communication going back and forth. I'm looking forward to him getting sworn in and having some good sit-down meetings and see where we can come together on this issue. It's definitely, and I'll steal a line from John Schroer, which he said in West Haven. Unfortunately, sometimes state government doesn't address our needs today we address the needs that we had a decade or 2 decades ago is involving traffic. So sometimes we get in these crisis modes because we are not proactively looking into the future, I would say. So, you know, and I'm new and I'm learning, and I have to make several calls sometimes. Jack is being very entertained sometimes because my mouth outruns my heart at this point, and sometimes my brain. So I speak very quickly on certain issues, and this is one of those issues that I'm passionate about, and we're gathering signatures at a rapid pace. I think here in a couple of weeks you'll be surprised on how many co-sponsors when this bill is filed.
Well, I experienced from my short political career, if I'd kept my ears open and my mouth shut a lot more when I was delving into city politics. I'm still embarrassed about one thing I proposed, and every time I think about it. But so it's easy to get passionate about something and look around and nobody else is passionate about it. So guess what? You're hung out to dry. So I'm sympathetic with you, and I know you'll handle that better than I did. Jack, local planning and zoning is something that specifically the city of Franklin leadership has been most concerned about, and made it a lot more difficult for cities to maybe manage their borders than it was in the past. And is there any plans this year to massage that, to make any changes?
Yeah, actually there is. In fact, had some communication with City of Franklin yesterday, and I think Brentwood, maybe Spring Hill are going to be involved at just some early, we meet, you know, every year. We try to sit down with our local mayors and city managers, and we had that meeting a week or so ago, I guess, and maybe 2 weeks ago, and kind of listen and hear their concerns. Mm-hmm. And certainly since we reformed or repealed Public Chapter 1101 relative to annexation by ordinance, that has created some issues and some problems. I think the city of Franklin would like to go back to that model. That's not going to happen. The political will is not there to do that in the General Assembly. However, I do think there are some things we can do to address some of their concerns, so that we maintain the spirit of what we tried to accomplish. So again, not prepared to get into any specifics other than to let you know that we are in communication with our local governments, and certainly we'll be probably filing some legislation to help them navigate those very muddy waters relative to annexation.
Right. Glenn, can you offer any more specifics?
No, I really can't. There's a lot of things that I ask members, like on our side, Mike Carter is going to be taking the lead on that, on the House side, working on, I guess, with Todd or with you.
Well, I'm not sure.
Huh. Jack, I can tell you somebody's going to give it to somebody else. So no, but I look forward to working with those guys, working with the Senate, and working especially with our local mayors.
Okay, great. There are several other issues we could get into, like I think sports gambling is a subject that somebody is discussing. Rural broadband is one you've already mentioned that made some major strides on over the past year or two. Any new initiatives? Sam, are you the one that is kind of following that?
Yes, and I think we'll continue to build on that. And I know Governor Lee, or Governor-elect Lee, has emphasized the rural development out there for our state. And were you going to ask me which bills we're carrying this session? I think.
Go ahead.
That's where you're heading for? Okay, well, good. I'll go ahead and touch on it. Amanda Conway, my legislative assistant, I assure her each year that I'm only going to carry 5. Glenn is rightfully so put us to 15 bills, because in the House we focus on quality, not quantity. So that's why we have a limit on bills, and a couple I'm
Shots
excited
fired.
about real
Shots
quick.
fired.
So working on things from dogfighting legislation to improving our Suicide Prevention Training Act, orders of protection, stalking legislation, protecting gas lines, helping our trustee here and our Register of Deeds with some legislation to clean up some things there. But one I'm really excited about, though, is what we call the Katie Beckett waiver, is to help those families, those middle-class families with children with severe disabilities who do not qualify for TennCare because they make too much money. And so what they can do, they can get a divorce or quit their job, and then they qualify for state benefits. It's crazy. And we've all discussed this, and so we were looking at the cost and how we can do this. Arkansas has a great model, and so we've been in discussion with various agencies and interest groups on that. So that's the one I'm really excited about.
I'm going to ask Dr. Janet Smith to stand up here and give us a little bit of insight into, obviously, the campus that we're standing on now as a result of our state legislative delegation getting behind the needs here in Williamson County, and we're certainly appreciative of being able to be here every month. But what else does Columbia State need? What would you advise these gentlemen to help you out with?
That's a really big question. As was said earlier, building number 4, we need to work on building number 4. We're out of space as it is now for new programs and for more students. We're full up, and so they will be working with us to try and get building number 4. One of the things I would ask, to consider in future as you work through this, we have a parking garage that we're building now, and we're building half of it. We still got another floor and a half we really need. And the way parking structures are in the state at this time, the college has to come up with the funds to build that. They're not built by state dollars. And that has been kind of the practice because universities are the ones that usually have them. Most community colleges are out in rural areas where there's plenty of land and surface parking is an easy thing to come by. In communities such as this, surface parking is very expensive, and the space is not there. So if there's opportunities in the future to look at how we fund parking structures, particularly for community colleges where the numbers are not as great as universities, that would be a helpful thing to us, because we had to go through a bond issue and our students are paying a fee to get to parking. One of the things I do want to point out too, and I think Representative Whitson and what he has done with the CTE program and what we're doing out in Fairview, and it's been very successful. If you're not familiar with that, he got us some funding to help cover some student costs out there for tuition. They can start out and receive either coursework in engineering tech or a certificate in engineering tech or an associate degree while they're in high school. And we had 3 students that completed last year. One of those got their 3 that got their certificate. One is at Columbia State now completing the associate. We have several in the pipeline this year. It's a program that works, and so we say thank you. It is a pilot for the state, so I think we're going to have some good data to go back for the state. So we're just appreciative for the support that you give, and glad you're all here on campus today.
Any responses?
Well, we just have a gym with this campus and with Dr. Smith, and we rally around that every opportunity we can. And thank you, Dr. Smith, for your leadership.
Williamson County Mayor Rogers Anderson is with us this morning. Stand up, Rogers, where we can see you. What, got any advice for these gentlemen or any requests?
It comes in from Williamson County approving. Let's go and get the money down now. I will mention one thing that that came about this week that we are looking at. The school system had a program, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday, about people passing school buses in school zones when the arms extended out. And I think all across the state they did a survey, and in one day this past spring or early summer, there were 18 violations of that, and I was really shocked at that. And then when I get into the criminal side, the justice side of it, it's a misdemeanor. So maybe there needs to be some tightening of that law to get it over to D or E and make it a little bit more costly. That is not something we can play around with these young people. And so they asked one individual what happened, and they just weren't paying attention, or they're on our cell phones. So maybe we need to tighten the law up on that a little bit and draw attention to it a little bit more because that, you work on your pocketbook, you seem to get their attention.
As someone who has an uncle that was killed by a car that passed a school bus as he was getting off, I can certainly sympathize with that.
I can weigh into that a little bit because I took a call on that issue yesterday, a matter of fact, and we have a local judge, and I don't want to, well, I'll name. Tom Taylor likes to put people in jail for 24 hours for speeding over 100 miles an hour in this county, and I love it. The amount of speeding incidents has dropped dramatically because we enforced our laws, and he's doing a good job on the bench, and people know in this county if you're going to get a heavy foot, you're going to spend the night in jail. And if you can't pay attention enough to see a yellow school bus, you don't need to be on the road for a time. So we're going to take this very seriously and look at it and do what we can. But, you know, I would love somebody to go spend the night in jail if they go blow through a school zone at 65 miles an hour or pass a school bus. You know, and I think most parents would agree. There needs to be some swift consequences to doing that.
I think that's what you call low-hanging fruit. Should be able to deal with that. Kirk Bednar, City Administrator, City of Brentwood. Kirk, what's the City of Brentwood need from our state delegation this year?
I think this year we're hopeful to stay quiet, to be quite honest with you. We've resolved some things in the last few years. Short-term rentals was our big issue the last couple of years, and I think successfully came to a solution on that last year. So our hope is to kind of stay out of it, not have to be exchanging text messages with our representatives on Sunday evenings and such. But I think one issue that will come up at some point, I don't think it's had a lot of discussion yet, is revenue sharing relative to cities and counties and state revenue sharing and the impact or the potential issue related to collection of online sales tax as a potential source of revenue for education and that kind of stuff. And I know there's not been a lot of talk, but I assume it will be at some point in time.
One more subject I'd like to cover with some of our audience members, but I'm not sure which alderman from the city of Franklin to ask this, but Ann Peterson, since you're the senior alderman from the city of Franklin, I'll let the two rookies over here go at the time. But planning and zoning, you are been a member of the planning commission for how many years? 30 years. So yeah, she's only 31. The planning and zoning issues we were talking about a little while ago, did you have any requests or suggestions how that might be addressed?
I don't. I think our mayor is and city administrator are probably looking at that part. But since I have a chance to say something, I do want to say thank you so much for the Mac Hatcher groundbreaking on that part. That's the northwest corner. But I also have to say I'm interested in getting 4 lanes for the southeast corners also. But again, thank you so much for everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Ann. And we do like to save a few minutes for questions. Any more comments from?
Yes, I would like also for Gail to talk about Williamson County Day on the Hill that's coming up. Something new, a new initiative this year because Williamson County, the perception from the rest of the state that we have heated roads and such, and so we're going to try to during the winter, and so what we're going to try to do this year is to show what we do for the state as a county.
Kel McDowell is the Chamber's fairly new Director of Political Affairs. What's the title now, Kel?
Director of Government Affairs. Absolutely. So we're very excited. This is our first Day on the Hill event. As you know, for Williamson Inc., we have already a large group signed up of local officials, business leaders, community leaders, and we really are looking forward to, exactly as Representative Whitson said, really telling that story and really drilling down to not only how we can make the connections from our community to the delegation and really make sure that two-way street is always at its very best, but to articulate what Williamson County really means for the state of Tennessee and the importance of our community, and just kind of really furthering that dialogue right there. So we're very excited. Spots are limited, so if you'd like to sign up, please do so very, very soon. And we're really looking forward to it, and thank you all with the delegation for being a significant part of this.
Very good. We have just a very few minutes for questions from our audience. Goodness, we got Mindy hitting me first, so I'm going to give her the first question, and the lady on the front row has already lobbied for the second.
Thank you. Sam jokingly said a few minutes ago that the rest of the state thinks we have heated roads and no problems. And now Williamson County is the seat of power, talked about across the state as the seat of power with the home of the governor-elect and the great job y'all are doing leading the legislature. How does that really impact when local legislation or something that's a local issue, how do you build that support across the state for legislation that really affects Williamson County?
Well, I'll chime in on that first because I think it's a great opportunity to nix any impression that you have that because we have these leadership positions, we can just snap our fingers and get something special for Williamson County. That's not how it works, okay? And even with the governor and everyone else. To do anything in the General Assembly, I have to get 17 votes in the Senate. They've got to get 50 votes in the House. And so, we're very fortunate and blessed. We can call attention, I think, to some of the issues that we have. School funding is one that we talk frequently about that we'll continue to work on. So it's a good thing, I think, to have us in these positions, but understand we still have committee systems we have to go through. We have to convince our colleagues. It's interesting if you're a student of political history, they used to refer to it endearingly. I don't mean this in a derogatory term, but they used to refer to the West Tennessee Mafia because you had Ned Ray McWhirter, you had John Wilder, who was longtime lieutenant governor, you had Jimmy Nafee, who was Speaker of the House. So you had this real concentration of power in West Tennessee. And then more recently, it's been in East Tennessee. You had Governor Haslam from Knoxville. You had Ron Ramsey as lieutenant governor for many years. Now Randy McNally from East Tennessee. Bo Watson's chairman of our finance committee is East Tennessee. Gerald McCormick on the House side. So it doesn't matter. I think it's good, but we've still got to go and make our case for our communities, for our districts, just like any other legislators have to do in order to advance a cause. So it's exciting, but we've still got to do our work.
Just as a primer to anybody that hasn't been paying attention here the last few years, but has anybody counted noses of how the rural versus urban nose count stacks up in the legislature?
Not to hog the microphone, but it's interestingly, this was pointed out to me as I was traveling the state, meeting with my colleagues, running for majority leader. And I'd never really heard it expressed this way, but I think in the Senate side, we have 13 of our 33 senators represent 80% of the geographic area of Tennessee. So put that into perspective. 13 out of 33, just barely over a third of our senators represent 80% of the counties. And so the point there being, and something I touched on earlier, is the importance of rural Tennessee. We're fortunate because people don't realize we have a lot of rural areas in Williamson County. We have the same challenges regarding broadband and access to broadband in Williamson County. And we've got, agriculture is a big part of our economy here in Williamson County. So people think of Williamson County as being a suburban county, and it is. And that's the bulk of our population, but we've got a lot of rural geography out there. And so in terms of noses, that's how it breaks down in the Senate.
It'd be a fascinating study for someone working on their PhD in the House, because on the House, rough numbers, a third urban, a third suburban, and we're suburban, and then a third rural. And so it makes some interesting politics and alliances when things go through. Most of the time, the rural guys are Republicans, the suburban guys are Republicans, and the urbans are Democrats. But it's interesting how things can cause that alliance to shift. So, yeah.
Interesting dynamic. Stand up, ma'am, and identify yourself. Ask your question.
Well, they all know me. And congratulations to Brandon, my new representative, District 61. I want to talk about health care. Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Nedra Clem Jackson, MD. I'm a family physician here in Brentwood, Tennessee. I have emailed, the opioid epidemic is #1 in Tennessee. TennCare, lack of a phrase, I'm trying to take TennCare. It is a very disorganized. It needs to be fixed. That's why physicians would not take it. Physicians not getting paid. Vanderbilt colleagues are leaving health care. They're leaving Vanderbilt. We need to work on this. I've sent my resume to the governor, but I want to know and I want to help, okay? I'm not going to talk my 5-state license. I'm set up for opiate, but they're calling us off. They're cussing us out. They want marijuana. We need help as physicians because we're miles of quitting. I'm trying to hang on. What are you going to do to try to help? And these are health care issues, and we have people in Williamson County that cannot afford insurance. They're on TennCare. I have the lowest prices, but this is an epidemic. Opiate is epidemic. Health care is epidemic. Our people are dying. Our children are dying.
Very quickly, I'll touch on that just because I had a lengthy meeting yesterday with a healthcare provider that I won't mention. But they did point out some things that Dr. Jackson is right about, is that TennCare does not pay for certain drugs that are used to treat opioid addiction. The federal government, Medicaid, at the federal level, has now mandated that this additional drug be covered, and that will be implemented January 1 of 2020, I believe it is. And so that's a step in the right direction to provide that additional treatment and make sure that there's access to all of the necessary drugs.
Gentlemen, I wish we had another hour. Tom, I don't think we do we? Because we could certainly spend a lot more time discussing all these things. Time is almost up, and I just want to say thank you all for making this a priority to help us understand what's going on down there better. And if you have questions, I know they're going to stick around for a few minutes anyway, and we'll be glad to talk to you about anything you have on your mind. I specifically want to thank our sponsors this morning for helping make this happen, Vanderbilt University, AT&T, and put in a little plug for Aspen Grove Asset Management and making it happen on WAKM. Creed and his team from WCTV make us look good every month. Creed, we appreciate you. And the chamber staff, Kel, Nancy, Griffin, you all doing a wonderful job of pulling this thing together, and we appreciate all your efforts. Columbia State, we love the facility here and just enjoy being here. Thanks for having us. And we've got a new coffee sponsor, and you'll have to help me with the, pardon me? Community Coffee is here. Plenty of coffee. Hope you'll help us drink it after the show this morning. Enjoyed having all of you here. Look forward to being back the last Friday of next month, and hopefully we'll have more specifics next month, gentlemen. Thank you all for being here.